only have 5 minutes to present, and then we'll do flies on the wall. Are we ready? All right.
Go.
Okay, so good morning. We're going to be going over a brand new project that we've been putting together with performance assessment embedded in.
Okay. So this year we're focusing just on like top 37 genetically engineered foods. And in years past we've done human genetic engineering too. But we're really going to focus on Prop 37 and the new proposition that's being put together in 2014 regarding labeling of genetically modified foods. So the real question is looking at the safety of genetically modified foods. The kids will be asked to, our driving question for this project is, do genetically engineered foods pose a risk to human health, and should we as a society require that genetically engineered foods be labeled? So they'll be engaged in the same process that hopefully every voter is engaged in as well.
Yeah, here's, so what we have up here is our project planning form that we put together. And what the students will be doing is they will be writing an individual research report. And so we're going to be scaffolding how to do research and how to write a scientific research report all throughout the project. And the research paper, again, students will research the safety of genetically engineered food and will present their position on the topic at a community event. So the paper is on safety, and then they'll also be in a group, and the group will present at a community event here at school. And another aspect is students will be actually required to find at least one endorsement for their group's lobbying efforts. So there's going to be a vote on presentation day. People will come and they'll have a ballot, and they'll choose pro or con, and they'll choose a group that they felt advocated best for that perspective as well. And students can either get just a person to endorse them, like say Mr. Bynum endorses our efforts, or will also encourage them and provide them resources for finding businesses like Rancho Gordo, an organic farmer, who have a perspective on this, and other local organizations, or even larger organizations may have a perspective. And what we're hoping students will learn is obviously largely about the science, and they're going to be learning about biotechnology, how proteins are made from genes. We'll be reviewing cells and immunology. But they'll also be learning that voting and science that they see and are exposed to in the media are influenced largely on endorsements, and how people vote is not always based on science.
And part of their paper, a large part of their paper is going to be analyzing research that's been done. So we'll give them resources to look at specific research that's been done in scientific journals, and how to analyze those and critique them through their paper.
Okay, and the topic for the research paper, again, to be more specific, sorry to make it so small, but what it says is, from gene to protein, how is genetic engineering done? Do genetically engineered foods pose a risk to human health? And content that students will learn. So we have some new content. New content includes some cell organelles that we've glossed over but haven't had a really in-depth project on. Biochemistry, so what proteins and amino acids are. Genetics include protein synthesis, what DNA and RNA do, and biotechnology techniques. And then we're also going to be reinforcing some things that students have already learned, like some of the cell membranes they have learned for organelles. Physiology, ecology, so why biodiversity is important and how food webs are interconnected. The connection between healthy cells and DNA and a healthy body and performance. So they'll be learning about, they'll be reading these studies and seeing how cells and these molecular things impact the overall body and the overall system.
Yeah, and with the presentation, they'll be learning some skills just as far as, I guess, persuasive ways to present.
Persuasive ways to lie.
Persuasive ways to present their science, their research, the research that they've done.
And also standards. We talked a lot about the biology. There's a lot of health standards too.
That's your 5 minutes. We have, what, 3 clarifying questions?
Yes.
Does anyone have a question? Go
Now I forgot it. It sounds like the kids are making a recommendation, and I'm curious, is it a pro or con to genetic engineering, or is it a more specific kind of recommendation that they're ultimately going to make, or do they get to choose between one or the other?
It is a yes or no to the direct question. So we're actually going to print out the direct question and have it at the exhibit really big. So, do genetically engineered foods pose a risk to human health, and should we as a society require that genetically engineered foods be legal?
Go ahead.
Do you have a definition of genetic engineering?
That's going to be mine, too. Do they, yeah.
Yeah, we've compiled a list of sources.
Is there a single definition that you use?
Yeah, there is a very precise definition for it. Genetic engineering is when genes are manipulated to produce a desired outcome.
Yeah,
That's the
so is
definition.
it direct manipulation or by selective breeding?
There's lots. Selective breeding is not genetic engineering, and we have a specific lesson on that that shows how they're different. But there are lots of different methods.
Okay.
And actually, one of the PE things that we'll be doing for scaffolding the technology is analogies, and having kids act things out are a really great way for them to see these molecular processes in action. And we did that with the immune system, and we'll do that again.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? Yes.
In terms of the final project, what would be the project expectation in terms of the presentation, like a PowerPoint or a video, or are you guiding students in any specific direction?
It'll be a community event, so how they decide to advocate for their side of the argument is up to them, but they're not going to they'll be in the cyber cafe, and so they may not have access to, they may have a computer at their table to show a slideshow or a video or something. But as we've done in the past with this exhibit, we kind of leave it up to them whether they want to make pamphlets or they want to make whatever kind of marketing materials for their position.
I may have missed it since I was out of the room. How long will this project last? What's the time frame?
March 18th is the night that we've planned for the.
So you've already
It's a
started?
Monday night. We'll be launching this project on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little over a
So
month.
we'll be revising this weekend based on what we hear today. And
Yeah.
our project calendar is down here now. It's got lots of benchmarks, so there's lots of little baby steps along the way.
Good.
To help the kids.
Okay, highlights? Yes.
I like that that they're looking at a real issue that was on the ballot and that, most people, some people are talking about, but a lot of people are kind of ignorant to the issue. So it kind of brings awareness.
Any other lights?
I like that there is a tie-in to social science.
Anybody else with lights? I have a light. I like that it's open-ended, it's not saying whether it's right or wrong, whether it's good or bad, and that the students are going to do the research and present their own conclusions. So that's, I like the fact that it's really looking at and trying to develop some critical thinking. Any more lights?
I like the fact that it's dealing with things that students are going to vote on and are going to make decisions about in the coming years.
Right, there's an active citizen component. Mhm.
So are you saying you like because it makes them an informed voter or
I
something?
like because
Okay.
it makes them an informed voter,
Okay.
informed citizen.
You have a light?
I like that they're working with community members to get endorsement.
I like that there's, they mentioned that they're gonna scaffold, research techniques and how to conduct effective research. And it sounds like they're providing a lot of resources, but also pointing them in the direction of, what might constitute a good resource for conducting research.
I also like that there's a large number of benchmarks that kids are being, helping out with their time management for a fairly long project. So you don't blow things off at the last minute, rush through it, not learning.
I like that they're focusing on common core standards.
I wonders. Any I wonders? Yes.
I wonder if there's room for them to include the media since it's a community event and this is a topic that people will be going on.
I wonder, in listening to all the things that they're learning from DNA to ecology, to all kinds of different things, I wonder if it maybe, it sounds like an awful lot for ninth graders to learn to me. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like it covers so many different areas that it might be overwhelming.
Any more I wonders?
I wonder what kind of component there's going to be to teach about effective propaganda technique, because there seems to be a lot of opportunity to teach
That's
that.
dovetails into one of my I wonders, is I wonder if the project can be presented completely neutral, and let students make a decision one way or the other. There's no even implied bias, pro or con.
Right,
Allow
except
students
that,
to
except that
actually
at the
do
end they
their own
have to.
critical thinking.
Yes, and that I agree with you, but the thing is, at the end, they do have a recommendation to make, and they're
Oh, yeah.
trying to solicit endorsements and persuade, and I think the effective use of propaganda toward that end is going to be an important
Yes.
part of doing that.
I wonder how much participation will occur with students in the medical field, since we're really talking about effects on their health, on human health. And the students will reach out.
Any other I wonders? I have one last I wonder, because there are a couple of moments left. I wonder how much of the supplied reference material versus how much they're going to be researching on their own to find articles, and how that ratio between them, and how much the expectation is for the students to do their own research as opposed to rely on a teacher-provided resource.
Well, it sounded to me like there might be some exploration, or maybe I'm just assuming this, that in providing the resources to sort of teach the students about what makes this a good resource, it just sounded like they were planning on doing some of that.
Okay, so you guys now get to respond?
I think we have next steps.
Oh, next steps, yeah.
So ideas for what we can do next.
Could you team up with the communication studies teachers on how to write that research paper?
I think a next step might be alerting organizations in the community that might be approached by the students that, that this is going to be happening, and they can expect, to hear from our kids, and we appreciate it if you wouldn't mind responding.
I did have a next step that I think might be helpful, is that because they're looking at genetic foods and the voting on whether or not they should be labeled and whatnot, it seems like political studies would be a shoe-in to maybe coordinate, if not make them like co-projects, but at least coordinate with them so that they're looking at how, in like California, our process for passing initiatives and whatnot goes along.
That's a great idea.
That would seem to me to dovetail into this one nicely.
I wonder if you might,
We're next stepping.
next stepping might be, I think Genentech has an outreach, an educational outreach program. That might get some information, get even some genetic scientists that are doing this here. I'm nearly positive they have an outreach.
And I think also another next step, because we just went through that teacher appreciation thing from the Farm Bureau, is perhaps to approach them, because they're intimately involved in genetic engineering, and they may be able to provide a whole number of resources and
I think
outside interest.
the next step might be to figure out who's growing genetically engineered grapes.
Yeah, that might be for something very local, that would affect us very locally,
And I bet you there are some out there.
probably. Any other next steps?
Maybe if they haven't already, maybe a room reservation form to reserve the Cyber Cafe? Oh, okay,
They're on it.
okay.
Might also be fun if they haven't done it already to do a pre and post survey of their own attitudes toward genetic
that's a
engineering
great
labeling.
And then do a post one to see if there's anything, if there's any changes
Mhm.
after doing the research and stuff.
Mhm.
Internally, that'd be a great idea for us to do. Any other next steps? Okay. So our
Kick
next.
their butts and make them do it. That's a good next step.
Make them do it.
Lock them all in the room.
Is it our turn to respond?
Yeah, now you no longer flex.
One thing we didn't mention about the launch, it kind of gets back to the pre and post survey idea, is we're gonna have kind of an interactive thing where we ask them questions about the topic, and if they agree, they'll move to one side of the room. If they disagree, they'll move to another. Based on questions like this, would you eat genetically engineered corn? Would you eat beef that was fed with genetically engineered corn? Questions along those lines. So they'll be able to have that activity to kind of launch them into this, but it might be further. And then we are going to have that group of too, where they respond.
I love the idea of capturing that data.
Yeah.
And then even just looking at that as part of our project reflection on what influenced their perspective.
It might be interesting to have some highly motivated students on both sides of the issue do polling in the cyber cafe as a first step and see
Oh
if,
yeah, school-wide data.
right, and then just and even being able to compare like what a motivated person that's against genetic engineering gets as their data compared to
Oh
somebody that's
yeah.
pro.
Technically, you're doing a next step again.
I'm sorry.
So well.
Hey, facilitated.
Sometimes it takes a little while for the next steps to show up.
Yeah, that's really good. Then it gets the whole school aware of what we're doing too, and might make that community involved in it. I really love the idea of tying in another class, whether it's I know we've been talking with communication studies about, and the community conference research writing and research papers this semester. So that would fit right in, and if we could have maybe a group from political studies that came in and just did a little workshop on how propositions.
Or the propaganda.
Because
Because they do that political projects.
Can I ask a question? About your campers?
Yeah.
Are the kids making any food, or are they going to grocery stores to check labels on food already? If they made something that wasn't labeled, would everybody eat it? Or if they brought in something that was labeled organic, would people prefer that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We're not requiring them to do that, but I would be surprised if someone didn't have some kind of taste test. So we'll let them know that they have that as an option. But I love that idea.
I wonder if you brought in.
Going back to our wonders stairs down, that's 2 steps.
Said that these may or may not be genetically engineered, whether any of them.
Just how that influences preference. Yeah, I thank you so much for all the feedback. We got some excellent ideas that we, sitting here in our pickle week in our own juices, wouldn't have come up with. So I really loved the pre and post survey idea, and I also really liked the suggestions for Napa County Farm Bureau and to find out about wineries and local farmers that would be impacted by this. Find out their perspective on it instead of just these big organizations that have been campaigning. Find out how it would affect local farmers. Like that.
And even on the facilitator, making sure the process goes along, they go way back to, like, having to, I wonder what would happen if you would, at the beginning of the class, set out 2 bowls of chips, one labeled as being genetically modified and the other non-genetically modified, to see who eats what.
Yeah.
How much one's eaten
The
over
kids would like
another
that.
one. Yeah.
Anything
And
that
maybe
involves
look
eating
at
chips.
some underlying feelings that they may not even know that they have until they're presented with that.
Yeah, and then to figure out what influenced that, given that they don't really know the science behind it.
Are the labels out yet? Are we labeling yet?
No,
Didn't
that
that
Prop
fail?
37
Not required.
failed by
Oh,
a
it didn't
small
pass.
margin.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, by a small margin. So, and one thing,
But it'll be on the ballot again in 2014, a new one. Yeah.
there is a lot of science, and we realize that there's a lot to scaffold, which is why we kind of don't want to get into the propaganda right away in the project. We kind of want to introduce that as we go along, because we don't want them to get lost in the juiciness of
Yeah.
the debate rather than the science behind it. And but I think we'll figure that out as we go along, and I think our scaffolding is set up that way. It's really focused on the science right away, and then we'll kind of weave those.
Yeah,
You could give extra credit if they could get pictures of marching Nazis into the presentation somehow.
consider that.
We actually completed everything on time, we have plenty of time left, so we can continue the discussion, which I think is really useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Kind of up with some neat ideas.
Absolutely, I love ideas.
And I just, after listening to part of this, came up with another idea to think about. When it comes to labeling stuff genetically modified or not, I think one of the issues they had was that, like right now, our corn supply is completely contaminated with starlight, which is genetically modified corn, and it was not intended to spread as far as it did. And so do we label everything in a corn product now in the entire United States genetically modified, because so much of it is cross-pollinated and so those might be more issues that the political studies might come out of political studies of what you guys are providing for them.
Yeah, and we imagine they'll also get into weighing the positives and negatives of pesticides versus genetically engineered crops, which are the worst, which are the bigger negatives. So there will be a lot of different directions. And that kind of gets into Jeanette's concern too, that about the freshmen and this being like way too much for the freshmen. So that's why we've identified specific skills that we're going to assess them on, and we've made a little table, and we've identified specific scaffolding strategies that we're going to do for each one and check marks on those. And we're going to be right from the beginning very upfront with our rubrics, how they're going to be graded, so that they know how they're going to be graded. But then if they even want to go to the next level and they want to start looking into pesticides versus genetically engineered corn and all these other things, they have the option. But we're hoping that really supporting the like foundation for all of them will allow them all to succeed, and then they can go in other directions if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's even doing the research on our end, getting ready for this project, maybe you find things that distract you, like just the amount of money that was spent on both sides of Prop 37, and it was astronomical difference between the no and the yes, and the fact that the vote came out as close as it did. But
So which one was which one was higher?
the no,
No pass, but they also had
No,
millions
they
of
had more money.
sponsorship.
way more money.
Millions, yeah.
Yeah,
Many millions.
tens of millions of
And
dollars.
why, and if they had taken all that money, instead of spending it on that, if they had just put it into the state budget,
I know, really, huh? I also wanted to mention too.
We're done with our entire critical thing, we've completed that whole process.
Yeah, but
Just
I
like-
wasn't going to break in on anybody, so
Oh,
I
okay.
raised my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pam. I didn't see your hand up.
Well, I went to the Allen November workshop last night, and he shared some amazing tools for web research that get you unbiased research, so there's not a faction that's supporting one or the other viewpoints that I would be happy to share.
That would be awesome because we don't have those specific tools.
He said in his tour of the school yesterday that he couldn't find a single student who knew how to get authentic research
Yeah, I'd say that's
on the
accurate
web.
with a lot of the kids.
Yeah.
Well, couldn't do what, I'm sorry.
What we're doing is an
Couldn't get
effective
authentic
I think one of your
research.
officers is going to be able to present that completely neutral to let the kids make their own decisions and what they're thinking about it, because it's so easy to have bias one way or the other, personal biases that bring in from their families themselves,
Right.
what you see in the media.
Yeah, one of the requirements for the research paper is they have to analyze at least one scientific article, and we're going to provide easy, medium, and difficult articles that they can choose from, and they have to choose at least one from that list. They can include other research if they want to, but we're hoping that if they're looking at science, that'll at least set the stage for them to make logical, well-informed choices. But I also wanted to mention too, in regard to Jeanette's concern, we're hoping that all the assignments that you saw on that calendar, they're all steps that lead directly to one of those two final products, either the presentation or the paper. So there's not like side stuff that's gonna, feel like busy work or feel like extra piled on top. So we're hoping that that will help alleviate some of the
So you
stress.
get your students to complete that, because one of the issues we have is like studies, we have a bunch of benchmarks and the scaffolding activities so that they can actually do something. But we have a fair number of students who don't do any of that, they just let it put things together. How do you,
One of the things that we do is we do like peer reviews and we just follow through on them. And since we have so many check-ins, we also have a weekly group meeting with the teacher. And we sit down and we say, okay, did everyone turn in their outline? Oh, Sam didn't turn in his. Sam, what was the challenge? What can we as a group do to support you with getting that turned in by the end of the week? And we set some goals. So we put it on the calendar because we often forget about group meetings with teachers, but I think that would be a really good process.
As science teachers, what's your take on labeling?
I'm kind of torn. One of the things I love about this project is I don't know as much about it as I probably should, so I'm excited to learn more from the kids. Right now, I'm pro labeling. I think more information is better, and even if people don't know what it means, something that gets people talking about safety and decisions that are being made that affect ecology and ecosystems, it's important.
I agree with that. I think if you put a no, then it closes the discussion. If we don't label, if we don't talk about it, then it's not an issue to be discussed. And it's something that most of us would be ignorant about.
Yeah, and the only reason why I'm on the fence is because I know pesticides can be very harmful, and I would hope that it wouldn't encourage the use of pesticides.
It seems to me to be a big can of worms.
Yeah.
As soon as you start doing genetically modified foods, should we start doing everything that's labeled as a pesticide, everything that's hard on the environment? They've literally been doing genetic engineering not at this level for thousands of years.
Well, and that's a misunderstanding. They've been doing selective breeding for thousands of years, but genetic engineering is a pretty new technology that you can directly manipulate genes.
but the effects of this are the same. We've created weeds, that never existed in nature without using genetic engineering, that people are
So what do you-
allergic to.
so what do
and
you
it's
do?
dangerous for 'em.
That's true.
Organically modified apples, because they've been
Bread.
Oh, they just crap, they are.
grafted so that they have one set of rootstock and one set of.
Yeah.
But the combinations that exist in selective breeding are things that are similar, not genetically, like even like apples and pears being mixed with selective breeding versus flounder
Apples
and
and
tomatoes.
and jellyfish.
Flounder, fish, and tomatoes. So those are totally new things that wouldn't have been possible with selective breeding.
I And now they want to create a Neanderthal out of the DNA. They have some DNA from a Neanderthal and they want to create a Neanderthal baby. Did you hear that?
That sounds
smart.
amazing, I'm pro that.
But then I said, well, we wouldn't have anyone to talk to, so let's make more than one. So they'll have peers.
Frankenstein.
But I love how just having this conversation right now, we immediately came to the science and we came to like, well, this has been going on thousands of years. And so I love how the science doesn't need to know, they need to understand how it's done.
The other things are things like, we deal with corn genetics.
Yeah.
Everything is genetically modified because it spreads, which in itself is something to look at why you need to, what kind of controls you want to have, because it was completely unintentional for it to spread throughout the entire corn crop. And they can't stop it at this point.
Yeah, now genetically
It's
it's a
out,
part of
and
it.
too bad, if you ever have a corn product, you're gonna have genetically modified food one way or the other.
Ew, and I just ate corn last night.
Ew.
Actually, yeah, I think Tom just read it's like 80% of corn in the United States now is genetic.
Wow.
90?
And how much is
It
soybean?
keeps on
Wasn't it
growing.
like 90?
Every year gets
Yeah,
worse
it was
because,
like 93% of soybeans in the United States.
because all the seed is contaminated and,
Yeah, just the pollen.
yeah.
How do you
because of-
genetically alter food?
Wikipedia seems to have a very good article on it.
There's a couple different ways.
Yeah.
They can use viruses.
Yeah.
They also use just like these little gene guns, and they actually shoot pellets of like DNA into cells, into the
DNA
nucleus.
from where?
From whatever organism you're getting the gene from. So it could be like a section of DNA that's been replicated from a jellyfish, and you're
Shooting it
into
into
your
our
putting it
food.
into-
You have glow in the dark
For
corn.
what reason? I mean, what
Well,
good does that
with
do?
the tomato example, it's so that the tomatoes didn't freeze. They didn't get
Yeah.
frostbite.
They took a.
Oh, you think that
It's
from
like a natural
disease
anti-freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them are for pest control.
Like the corn, yeah.
You make it so that a certain weevil doesn't like the corn.
And one of my cousins does genetic engineering, and he's making bananas that are a vaccine for third world
Right.
countries that can't get it vaccinated. But they could grow a banana plant, eat the banana, and they're vaccinated against smallpox and other diseases that they simply cannot get access to because there's no way to do it in one of those countries.
And there's also golden rice
Golden
that
rice.
is available to countries where your vitamin A deficiency is a big problem. It's rice that has extra vitamin A. So there are also social reasons to do it.
But there are hazards involved in all of that because we don't know, actually, I'm not sure how good we're at doing all this yet.
And then how about foreign countries that want to attack us some way? They could just probably introduce some
Yeah,
kind of
violent.
weird.
But there are a lot of bioengineered weapons that they don't need to put
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot faster up there.
Get rid of bioengineering to mitigate that problem.
So,
Well, on that note, it's time to plant some
Yeah, it's time
organic
to go.
seeds and start our organic seed garden.
yeah, good start.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.